Oh, what's going on, GameLeap? It's the Jizz, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about patch 11.24b, which is under a week away, and we're going to be talking about the 15 most underrated champions. So these champions are taken from the low-key broken tier in the tier list video we uploaded a couple of days ago, so make sure you check that out if you haven't already. And pretty much these champions just aren't played enough for how good they are, and another upside is that they're not going to be picked or banned as much as the more obvious broken champions. And just before we get into the countdown, I know lots of people talk about the preseason. You know, it's just preseason. Who cares about ranked? Who cares about improving? Well, that's why you should care about improving. So checking out our website, linked in the description or comment section, is going to improve your game and give you the head start you need to absolutely send it when season 12 comes around. So I challenge our players and coaches. We're uploading up to 20 videos a week for our subscribers. To get that exclusive access, we're talking guides, courses, high elo VOD analyses, everything you need to improve and become the best player you can be. We have it on our website, so check it out. And let's get into the video. So first off, we're going to start by talking about Fiora. Now, how on earth can Fiora be low-key broken? Well, the simple fact is that Fiora, ever since Gore Drinker and Conqueror got nerfed back to 4 seconds towards the end of Season 11, her win rate took a massive hit. She was one of the premier top laners for most of last season, but ever since those nerfs came in, she really hasn't been the same champion. But she kind of has been mini-revived since Conqueror got buffed in 11.24. So the stacking is now lasting 5 seconds, and if we think about your lunge, your Q, when you get 3 points in your Q, the cooldown when you actually do hit an enemy with this is going to reduce to below 5 seconds. So if we think about Conqueror's stacking, this is going to allow you to permanently stack Conqueror by just queuing towards your opponents. And this becomes even more impactful once you get Gore Drinker and more ability haze. So the change for Fiora helps her at every stage of the game so she can get to the mid to late game where she's pretty much unbeatable in the 1v1. And to be honest, this Conqueror buff is the reason why the best Fiora players in the world boast around a 55% win rate in Master and above. So it might not be the same in lower elos, but for sure, there is some power here that is not getting unleashed. Now, another champion very similar to Fiora who's flying under the radar at the moment, this is Riven. And just like Fiora, in higher elos, when Riven is played by the best players, she has around a 55% win rate as well. Now, why is this? Well, just like Fiora, the Conqueror stacking going back to 5 seconds is just crucial. So not only is this better for Riven during the laning phase when you're trading with your opponent, but also during the mid to late game. Just like Fiora, once you start getting Gore Drinker, Black Cleaver, all of that ability hates, it adds up. And because you have your abilities more often, you can stack Conqueror pretty much permanently. The stacking is not going to run out, so you always have access to the damage and hopefully the true damage and healing at max stacks. So both Fiora and Riven might not be as strong as they once were, especially during Season 11, but they are for sure more than playable and a lot more playable than most people think at the moment. But I want to head to the mid lane next and talk about 3 champions who are really underrated at the moment, and that's been the case since Archangel's staff got buffed in 11.24. So we all know by now that the gold went down by 400, so it's 2,600 gold in total to buy Archangel's staff, which then upgrades into Sarah's Embrace. So if we think about champions in the mid lane who love this item, so maybe Kog'Maw, Orianna, and Seraphine. Now, 2 of these, Kog'Maw and Seraphine, you don't see that much, so they have to be on this countdown. It is low-key broken after all. And yes, I know that Orianna is played, but in solo queue, she really isn't the best champion. Her win rate before the Archangel's change was around 47-48%. Now it's close to 50%, all because one item got buffed. And it might seem a little weird Orianna going Archangel stuff, but to be honest, this used to actually be a purchase during Season 11. And now that it's giving you ability haze, okay, you're not going to hit as hard because you're missing out on AP, but having cooldowns more often, this is really useful. And to be honest, at the moment, there's so much damage in the game, it's not like you need all the magic damage to one-shot the enemy team to actually win a game. So for these 3 champions, Kog'Maw, Orianna, and Seraphine, who love spamming their spells, and it's all about the quantity rather than the actual quality, the buff to Archangels has put these champions on the map, but to be honest, not enough. So make sure you guys abuse these as much as you can in 11.24b. But let's stay in the mid lane here and talk about this next champion, because he's been the rave of Reddit at the moment, and that is Corki, with one of the wackiest build setups we've seen. And I've talked about this in another video, but it deserves to be in this countdown as well. So it's Corki with Manamune, standard stuff, but then with Ravenous Hydra and Luden's Tempest. Now this build was made popular by a Chinese Corki player in high elo, and now it's filtered into Korean high elo and pretty much every other server. Now the reason this build is so good on Corki is because you're playing Corki like a spellcaster. When you go Shield Bow, which to be honest is still the most popular mythic, auto attacks become a bigger part of your kit, but Corki's range isn't really the best, right? Like you have to get up close and personal to the enemy champions, and this can be dangerous. So when you have Ravenous Hydra and Luden's Tempest, this changes you more into an artillery mage. So you're staying more at range and, to be honest, dealing more damage. You will be one-shotting squishy champions with this setup, and the ability power, the magic penetration, because you have so much magic damage in your kit, it works so well, so make sure you guys test this out next patch. Super fun as well. But maybe one champion who might like playing against Corki in the mid lane is a champion the Riot hates when he is played in the mid lane, and this is Pyke. So Pyke Pyke next patch is actually getting buffed. So his passive, the regen, is going from 35% to 40%. But the real big news here, guys, is that your Q's damage, even at rank 1, is going up 15. So it's going to be 100. Now I understand that Pyke at level 1 isn't the scariest champion unless you do invade, but still the base damage at each rank is up, so not just at level 1. So even though you can't access the passive buff as much as a Pyke support, in the mid lane it's just the fact that your Q is going to deal more damage. And when you pair this with Duskblade and the new Axiom Arc item, even though this got nerfed last patch, so the cooldown reduction is now 20% and not 25%, it's still a brutal and very scary setup to play against. And it's also really nice playing Pyke mid because you don't really need to farm to be useful. You know, you can just roam around the map, give up CS, and it's a very effective way of playing solo queue. So even though Riot hate Pyke being played in the mid lane, he is for sure going to be more than viable next patch. So if you want to play a roaming assassin, Pyke is definitely a good shout. And let's stay with that roaming assassin theme here and talk about this next champion on the countdown, and this is Echo in the mid lane. Now why would I recommend Echo? Because like some of these other champions, it doesn't have the best win rate. But the reason I'm recommending Echo is because so many champions in the mid lane at the moment who are strong, Echo does very well against. So in particular, these mages. Because if we think about Echo, he has so much mobility and survivability. It's pretty much impossible for these champions to ever kill you, and because of that mobility, you can use it on the offensive as well, and you have so much one-shot potential. Now Crown of the Shattered Queen is a bit of a cuck, but not every champion on the Rift is going to build it, so you are always going to have an opportunity to one-shot one of the enemy squishy champions. And one of these squishy champions is following Echo on this countdown, and this is Twitch. And you might be like, why would I pick Twitch if I can play Vayne, Kog'Maw, Ashe, Jinx, Caitlyn? Well, the reason is very simple, guys. Twitch can make use of lethal tempo, that's for sure. Maybe not as well as these other champions I just mentioned, but the point is that these other champions who are good, how are they going to escape your ultimate? They don't have the most mobility, so if we think of Kog'Maw, Caitlyn, Ashe, Jinx, these AD carries are more like stand and deliver AD carries, whereas if we think of Vayne, Samira, Lucian, these have mobility, so it's a lot harder to actually get our damage off. But these are mobile AD carriers, even though their laning phase might be difficult. Like it would be very annoying, right? Playing Twitch against a Caitlyn or an Ashe. But if you can get to level 6 and then your Kraken Slayer spike, there is no reason as to why you wouldn't be able to absolutely pop off against these immobile, pretty rigid AD carries. And this is also why Twitch at the moment actually has a pretty good win rate, around 51-52%. So to be honest, I think he's really flying under the radar. Now let's stay in the bot lane here, guys, for this next pick. And unfortunately, we only got one support on this countdown, and this is Rakan. And Rakan at the moment is just a very consistent support. He can peel, he has engage, he has a bit of sustain with his Q. But what is making Rakan low-key broken for 1124B? Well, the reason for this is because of the new Glacial Augment, which is scaling more off your heal and shield power. And I also want to mention our next champion on this countdown for this exact reason. Ivern. So these two champions who actually can proc Glacial because they have CC in their kit, if we think of Rakan with his W and his ultimate, and if we think of Ivern with his Q and Daisy's knockup as well, when you pair this with the scaling from the healing and shielding you have, it makes Glacial Slow even more impactful. And because these two champions, Rakan in particular, has amazing AoE, it's going to be even bigger in those team fights, and as a result, you will be able to carry games and just have a bigger influence. And by the way, guys, if any of you have any opinion on the underrated champions on this countdown, or if you think a champion should have been included, let me know in the comments exactly what it is. Now we're going to head to the top lane here and wait for it for the next 3 champions. And the first of these is Wukong. Now Wukong, especially recently, has been a very solid champion just because of his innate kit. He has 2 ultimates, his passive makes him very tanky, he has a dash in his W and his E and attack speed steroid, and his Q gives him extra range and cancels his auto attack animation. So there's a lot of stuff going on there. But Wukong has been nerfed a lot recently, and his win rate as a result is no longer around 53-54%. But at the moment in the top lane, there are so many champions Wukong does well into who are kind of meta. So if you think of Jace, Urgot, Darius, Wukong, because of the armor in his passive and because of the dash and mobility he has, absolutely crushes these champions. And thankfully, because Conqueror stacking is now lasting 5 seconds, pair this with your low cooldowns in your Q and maybe your E in the late game, it means you are never going to lose the stacking. So just like Riven and Fiora, getting to the max stacks and getting the true damage and healing should be really easy. But maybe one champion Wukong would not do well into is coming in next, and this is Sejuani. And yes, Sejuani top. Now Sejuani top has popped up a few times with Ignite and Teleport, and for sure this is one benefit of playing Sejuani top. But another benefit is the fact that Fimbulwinter, this new tier tank item, it really makes her a pain in the behind to deal with. Now even though Frostfire got nerfed, so the scaling off the HP, this has now been removed from the Snowbind passive, but still, it's a very cheap and gold efficient item, and once you finish the Winter's approach and it converts into Fimbulwinter, because of Sejuani's innate CC, you're going to get the benefit from the shield so much more than other champions, and after this, once you get a Thormail, even Demonic Embrace, which remember is transferring some of the HP you get, especially from Frostfire's mythic passive, into AP, you can actually carry games not just by absorbing damage because you're a tankiness, but also by dealing a lot of damage as well. And I would also recommend to pick Sejuani top when you have a lot of melee champions on your team so you can get more stuns off. So really underrated pick that one, but probably not as underrated as Cassiopeia. Not Cassiopeia mid, Cassiopeia top lane. Now why would you play Cassio top lane and not mid lane? Well, the simple fact that most champions in the top lane are going to be melee champions. And let's be honest, anyone who has played top against a Cassio knows how impossible and annoying it is. Like if your jungler doesn't help you, you are going to get dumpstered. Now of course the Cassiopeia maybe in lower elos might not be that in tune with the champion, so you can kill her. But if you're against someone who knows how to pilot this champion and space and kite, it is so frustrating. And to be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if some even high elo players ban Cassiopeia because they don't want to deal with it. And just like I mentioned for Orianna, Kog'Maw, Seraphine, the fact that Archangel's Staff, which is a crucial item, is now 400 gold cheaper, it has really pushed Cassio's win rate up, and this is why she has to be considered as one of the most low-key broken champions. But the last champion we have to consider, guys, for 1124B is being underrated. This is Cho'Gath in the mid lane. Now Cho'Gath is getting played a little bit more because people are starting to realize just how broken Cho'Gath with Everfrost and Predator is. And even though Predator got nerfed, you're still getting easily enough movement speed to get around the map, gap close to your opponents after landing a Rupture, and just go nuts. And to be honest, that is the most broken thing about it. Landing one Rupture, then pressing Predator, the enemy champion is going to die. Because you kind of need the movement speed, because Cho'Gath can get kited and dodging his Q should be easy enough, but if you land just one, the lane is going to turn on its head. And thankfully, because Riot buffed your Q, so the cooldown is now a flat 6 seconds, you can do some serious damage in the mid lane, especially to players who are not paying attention, which is probably most players. So those are the 15 most underrated champions, guys, for 1124B. Let me know in the comments what you thought of the video and the list as well. And if you did enjoy the video, leave a like down below. And until tomorrow's daily upload, this has been the Cheers. Peace.